injustice. His student, the philosopher Plato, captured these explorations in his dialogues, writings that typically portrayed a conversation between Socrates and another person. Socrates would start by asking a question like, "What is courage?" The person might answer, "The ability to resist running away from a battle." Socrates would then respond with more questions, each designed to poke holes in the previous response. The dialogues are filled with Socrates' subtle humor and sarcasm. He repeatedly compliments the other person's great knowledge while claiming total ignorance of the topic at hand. Often he pretends to have absolute faith in the person's argument, only to take that argument to an absurd extreme, exposing its logical flaws. By the end of the conversation, no truth is reached, though many falsehoods are left exposed. Socrates was comfortable with this lack of resolution. According to him, the greatest wisdom lay in knowing that you know nothing. Many of Socrates' dialogues are with prominent Athenian citizens who probably didn't care for being made to look foolish. He also publicly criticized the city of Athens as a whole. By 399, his fellow citizens had had enough. Socrates was sentenced to death for worshiping false gods and corrupting the minds of the young. So, it seemed like Socrates' method may have made people angry. It may have frustrated people, but one thing for sure, asking questions and digging deeper, challenging people's, again, assumptions or arguments, it does force those people to really figure out, why is it that I believe X, Y, and Z? Or why is it that I'm arguing this position? Why is it that I feel this way? Now, their argument might have been weak, right? Their arguments may have even been wrong. Maybe they were on the wrong side of some issues. However, after going through something like a Socratic method, whether in conversation or class, again, you will find a way to solidify what you believe, right? And hopefully find better ways to express yourself, but also find better evidence and make your argument stronger. So that's what I think do sometimes in class. I didn't know I did that, but somebody brought that out. Sometimes I ask a lot of questions. I love discussion during class because that's when you find out who you really are. Just studying a textbook is definitely not enough for true learning and true education. So I encourage us to always ask questions, no matter who's talking, whether it's me, whether it's someone else. Don't be afraid to challenge and ask questions, of course, respectfully, to figure out what really is the argument. Why does the person feel this way? And then to think about, okay, well, what do I feel about this? What's my takeaway? So with your sheets, there were a couple of exercises that went with the debate or the rhetoric. I just wanted to go over one. I know you'll do this again at home, but give me one moment. So I enjoy Brain Pop. I mean, all of the lessons, again, it's art, it's English, but also social studies, science, and they have a few extra topics. So you should have had the vocabulary sheet. Just wanted to show that to you again, and you could see it a lot better than the first time. Okay. Words like esteem, rebut, eloquent, right? Make sure you define those words, but also write a sentence with those words. And I do think we had the graphic organizer. Okay, so this was the activity where you had to work with a partner or a friend. And luckily I have Miss Princess Johnson here. She is a silent partner today, but don't worry. Next time she might actually be leading the class, and that would be wonderful. So this says, pair up with a friend and debate whether uniform should be mandatory in public schools. Write your argument in the space provided and then rebut your friend's argument below. So if I was going to start, I'm honestly going to say I don't think uniform should be mandatory in public schools. I was at high school when they tried to force us to wear uniforms, many of the parents and students did not vote in favor, they voted against. My argument would be that schools should not force, or schools should not make wearing uniforms mandatory. And one of my arguments against would be that it totally kills your sense of self-awareness, but also it hurts self-expression. And that was my argument in high school. I think that was most of the arguments, from the kids at least. The parents, however, I think some of them felt that, you know what, this might be an additional cost that we just don't want to get into. We don't want to have to buy uniforms, this particular brand, this particular color from this particular store. That was another argument against mandatory uniforms in the public schools. Another about the mandatory uniforms, as far as being against, another was, well, uh, it wouldn't be fair. It's just not fair to dictate to families and students and parents what type of clothing their kids could wear, right? Who would decide this? Who would decide the colors? Who would decide all of this? And many parents felt like they did not want to be told, again, what their kids should be wearing. So those are the three arguments I heard a lot. But now, if you had to do the flip side, right, or be devil's advocate, which means you're taking the opposite side and saying, you know what, school uniforms should be mandatory in public schools. What would be some of your arguments? Okay, if it was for, right, and I heard some parents say this, you know what, actually, this would help my family out. I wouldn't have to worry about what Sally's going to wear and Susan and Sharon, right? They would all be wearing very similar clothes. I would know where to get them from, and it could be cost effective. I don't know yet, but it could be. Those were some arguments. Administration would say, well, we have a dress code that people just aren't following. So if we had the mandatory uniforms, that would be great, because then there would not be any issues, right? Pants would be at a certain length, shirts would be this type of size, this type of color, no special logos. Another person might argue in favor and say, as far as socioeconomics go, this would help people out, and the kids out in particular. No one kid would have one thing better than another kid, right? You couldn't say, well, wow, he has new flashy red Jordans on. Nope, everyone has the same or similar type of shoes, pants, shirts, skirts, however it is, dresses. So that was another argument. And yet another argument was, you know what? It won't kill self-expression. The kids can always change clothes when they leave school. They always have the weekends, and even during school, there might be special days or times where they could wear something else, like their spirit week. There might be times where you'll dress in something totally different. So that's how you would form an argument for, an argument against. Again, oftentimes it's just real life topics and issues. You might be asked to do this again for your HiSET/GED test, and you can do it. This was your other exercise. The quiz I won't go over, right? You know what to do with that. I just want to see if there's one other thing. Let's see. So there are games on BrainPop, and there's a movie that also just gives you a nice, well-rounded view of the topic at hand. But again, I'm pulling these worksheets. If you have questions, let me know. Please, please, please do all of the activities. Please do not skip activities, whether one might be more fun than another, one might be more boring. Do all of them. Again, what I'm doing, even though we're at home, and I know this is different, what I'm trying to do in cooperation with East Mississippi Community College is see which students are progressing, which students are doing the work, what type of accuracy do I find in the answers, and then I share that information so we then can show, okay, this student's ready to take HiSET reading, or this student is ready to do the TABE post test. We can't open up to all students, so we're focusing. There's tunnel vision right now on those students who are working the hardest. So please, please, please do all of your work. And if you don't understand something, I'm just a call away, right? We'll figure it out.